What is your approach to responsible innovation?
We started at Dialogik, or well, me personally, we started with a really scientific approach from the research field. What is good public engagement in connection to responsible research and innovation? And it was a lot of questions about how could engagement work, what policies do we need for future engagement. That was a big question in two projects, in the Engage 2020 project, for example, or we did the PROSO project. How could we support public engagement in RI, especially connected to the questions of Horizon 2020?
What is public engagement more than open innovation, more than involving stakeholders?
I think if you connect public engagement with RI, you have a lot of principles which support the quality of public engagement. And talking about ethics or gender equality, but it's how could public engagement have a real impact on decisions or innovations or on policies. That's really the connection between ROI and public engagement to have an impact.
So it's a question of how to design it and what kind of decisions are put into the focus of public engagement.
Yes, of course. If you have a decision where you have the answer is yes or no, it doesn't really make sense to do a big process of public engagement. You can vote, and maybe people are happy with it and the others are the minority. But often you have fields, especially in research and innovation, you have fields where the range of the decisions in the end is pretty open. So if you do a good process and think about who to involve in this process and what are the directions we can go with the whole process.
You talked about good engagement. What are quality criteria for good engagement?
So this really depends on who to involve. So it's really connected to fair selection of participants. Sometimes it's everybody has a chance to be part of the process. Sometimes it's we want to talk to affected by, especially in health, affected by the technology. And that's one point of good engagement. Then all the process criteria, how to facilitate the event, what's the atmosphere of the event, and everybody is equal in the process. You need a good facilitation. And after all, you need good information of the participants before and after the process. So there's nothing worse than being a participant in a good process, and after the process ends, you never hear about anything. So what happened with the results? That's communication after the process. Yeah.
Selecting the right participants is a question of diversity and of inclusiveness. How can companies find the right participants?
I think to find the right participants, it's good to think about what do we want from the process, what's the main question of the process, what are the topics, and which main question is connected to people. Means if I'm talking about blind people, I should talk with blind people. It makes no sense to talk about what do blind people need when there are no blind people in the process. That's one group you can think of. The other question is more complicated. If you talk about a new innovation, a new product, and there is no affected group, you need to think who is the public and whom to involve. And maybe it's some older people mixed with some younger people, mixed by gender. And it's always hard when you have a small number of participants to show what's the public, what's are the citizens. But if you mix it up and you think about it, and it's a product or an innovation which is for all the people, then you maybe need some more workshops, some more participants, and do a line of workshops and think about who is the public.
If we think about the right people to involve in such a process, who are the wrong people?
If we talk about policies and policy processes, there are no wrong people. We need to talk to everybody. But if we talk about innovation in industry, I think the industry is not the institution to care about everybody. So maybe we need to say, okay, if the people only have concerns and fears and the industry wants to make an innovation, maybe it makes sense to talk to people who are lead users, are change agents, are early adopters, who are really interested in the innovation. So I don't think the industry has the role of a democratic institution to support everybody. That's policies, and there we have to do it. There we have to talk to everybody.
Could you imagine of cases where participation or citizen engagement is not appropriate?
I think, but maybe it's my social science background, and I really think Habermas, with his arguments and discourse theory, really gets a point. As long as we talk to each other, we can find a solution. That's hard if it's a yes or no question. You see it in the Brexit, there's a yes or no. But that's not a problem of the process. It was a process problem, so they didn't talk in the beginning. It was just, okay, let's do it. That's democratic. We say yes or no. But maybe there were some arguments not heard in the process. And that's what public engagement really can do, is to talk to each other and maybe find a consent. You can also find a dissent, then you have to vote. But you can find a consent when you talk to each other and change arguments.
Is public engagement equally important in all the different phases of innovation?
For me, it is. Maybe there's a difference, but when you collect ideas, it depends on what do you want from the process. So if you want to collect ideas, it's really important in the beginning. If you want to have some interaction with the people about the results, then it's in the end. So that's a classic marketing thing, talking about here's our new product, what do you think? Is it great? And I'm not sure it's the right time to ask the people just in the end. Sometimes it makes sense if the product is some lucky innovation you found somewhere and you think, okay, let's talk to the people. But I think, especially in the beginning, collecting ideas and working on the innovation in the middle of the process really makes sense if you want to avoid problems. You have a product nobody needs. We talked a lot about Google Classes. This is a product that came out of nowhere, and maybe Google talked to some people at the end of the process. How do you think is it? And they had some change agents or early adopters there that said, great, classes. And after they put it on the market, nobody wants to buy Google Classes. That's maybe one example for this. We also had it with some outdoor clothing, and in the 70s, nobody wanted this kind of material before the industry 10 years or 20 years later. So, okay, it's outdoor material, and it totally worked, but 20 years later. So talking about needs in the process really helps to sell a product in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are the most important pitfalls in public engagement and companies should be aware of?
I think the biggest pitfall is when you have a hierarchy. We are the ones who say, that's great, and you just have to believe it. That's why you're here. We give you the information why our product is great, And after the workshop, you will think it's great. That's not equal communication. I think this is a really big pitfall. What's a bit of an attitude, it's a bit about respect. And the second one is not thinking about what impact is possible. What we talked before is that I need to know what is the possible result. Is there a big range of results possible, or is it just yes or no? You can't start a process with a yes or no question, talk 5 hours and then say, now you see it's yes. Then there are some people that say, no, it's no. And you need to inform the people in front of the process and inform them what happened. Or involve them.
It's a question of openness on communication on eye level and transparency.
It's about openness and transparency, but transparency is not a rule you need to follow everywhere. So the workshop can really be a closed space. But inside there's transparency, and there's transparency about results, but not who said something or we made the process because Mr. X said. That's not transparency. It's more about transparency of results and transparency in the process for the participants, not for the public at all. Yeah.
What's the main motivation of people attending such kind of processes?
I think some people really enjoy to be part of engagement processes. That's a minority. And when we talk about innovation, for some people it's really great to be part of an innovation process and say, oh, you see this product. There was one little part of this product, or the whole product was my idea because I was in this company and we talked about what do we need. And especially when you go to needs of people in the health sector, it could really help people in their everyday lives. They have some struggle with health, and there's a company listening. What's your specific problem? And now let's find a solution, because that's not everyday life. It's maybe the whole life of feeling good, being part in the society. Maybe the product helps you. That's really utopic, but sometimes it helps. The first prosthesis was an invention a long time ago, but before this the people were out of society. So yeah, especially talking about health, living, being old, there are many questions where innovations can help the people, and you need to ask them what are their needs. Yeah.
You mentioned living. In the Living Innovation Project we will deal with the way we live in 2030. What related challenges and what benefits do you perceive, and when you think about future living?
I think we have two main topics of this covered with the project. The first was health, I talked about, and the second one is how do we live at home, and this is really connected to how do elderly people live in homes in the future. How can an innovation help disabled people? How can the whole area of living and health be connected for maybe, let's call it again, a good life or an independent life? Maybe there are some technologies who can really help people live their own life, not being alone. Innovation could support them. It means not that they have no contact to real humans anymore, but maybe their everyday life is a bit easier and you don't have to call another person for just each detail of your life, because there's an innovation which helps you live your life even if you're older, and maybe you feel a bit more secure falling down the stairs or something like this. There's a robot saying help. It could be a good feeling for people, and we are not the ones who should judge it. The people should talk about it. That's the reason why we need engagement.
Which industry sectors are most open for public engagement?
I had a feeling the health sector is really open because they are used to talk to people who have a need which is really specific. So they recognized early we need to talk to the people. And I think there are a lot of other sectors. Maybe there's one company a bit more open than another one, but I think every company can open their doors and talk to people about needs.
What could promote the further uptake of responsible innovation and citizen engagement in Europe?
I think maybe we will just recognize that engaging people in all sectors, the public will recognize, oh, I can change something by participating, and then it's a long process. It's not okay, now we talk with each other and we solve all the problems, but when we don't start talking, then we have lost anyway. Especially about questions we need to solve now. It's the last chance to talk about climate change and maybe find some solutions.
If a company is interested in responsible innovation and public engagement, what would you recommend them to do first?
Just try. Maybe it's this one, be open to try it, and then there is a lot of rules of engagement and or just helpful tips how you can use engagement in every process. It's all out there. We don't need new methods. We just need to think about how to use the methods. It's all there. And yeah, in the first step, it's you think maybe it's more time, it needs more costs. And in the beginning it is. If you try something new, you have some costs and you have some resources you need to spend. But in the end, maybe there's a new product you never thought about it. Maybe it's about ideas. Maybe it's about the impact of a product. So I think a company really can benefit of such a process, but not in the first year. So maybe don't expect too much in the beginning, but there will be a good end. Just try. And the social scientists always use the living labs, where failing is one possible result, and that's wanted too. And you can learn a lot of failing out of a process. So maybe, yeah, just try a bit. Yeah.
Thank you.